Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to be revealing the 10 most played games according to my PlayStation 5. So this is the 10 games that I've put the most time into across the PS4 and PS5 life cycles, at least PS5's life cycle up to this point. Obviously, PS3 is not tracked as a part of these metrics, so I don't have those numbers. I don't know how many PS3 games would rise above any of these, but just know that this is PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 only. And I think if you're new to the channel, this will give you an idea of the types of games that I really enjoy. If you are a returning viewer of the channel, you might be surprised. You know, some of these games you'll definitely have seen me talk about, maybe even recently, but others have never really mentioned on the channel before. And there's some surprises in here, even for me. I was taking a look at the list and I was like, dang, really? So it should be a good time. We're going to start it right out the gate. First off, honorable mentions, shout outs to Control and Returnal, my two runner-ups. Neither of them quite crested into the top 10, but they're both incredible games. I've actually been playing Control lately. So it's at 75 hours now. I'm working through the AWE DLC. That might be going up to like 80 or so by the time I'm done. Still not enough to move it up at all, but it'll move it higher on the list, maybe above Returnal. And Returnal, just a great game by Housemarque. Yeah, my number 10 game is Dreams, which is sort of games within a game. And I think most people by now know I'm a really big defender of Dreams. Dreams is probably one of the biggest fumbles that I've ever seen from Sony in terms of how they marketed it and how they handled it. There were so many opportunities to make Dreams bigger than it was that they just didn't take advantage of. I guess before any of that, I should say what Dreams is. If you've never seen it before somehow, Dreams is developed by Media Molecule, same folks that made Little Big Planet, and it is essentially a game engine and game storefront at the same time. So it has all the tools you need to create full, legitimate games, and then they're all released for free in the Dreams UI, and then as a player, you can go through and explore, find games, play through them, rate them, review them, all sorts of stuff. So it's a platform first, and then, the games are a result of that platform. Really incredible stuff, so much creativity, so much talent that exists in Dreams, so much passion. Like, you want to talk about like the indiest of indie developers, like true boots on the ground, like earnest die-hard game developers go into Dreams, because these are people that are doing all this work in tools that are honestly more cumbersome than you would probably find on PC. And they're doing it all absolutely guaranteeing that there's no hope for monetization at all. They know that the most that can happen is it's just a somewhat popular game, which is like commendable. Although I also think that they should have found a way to monetize some of this stuff. But yeah, with there being so much potential, so much energy, so much life to the idea of Dreams, it's just sad to see that Sony never did anything. They could have separated the player and the developer client out and released, maybe the play client for free to guarantee a large pool of players, and then, charged on the back end for development tools, or the inverse. I don't know, whichever one of those make more sense. Or put this game should have been on PS Plus as a free game within like the first month or two of it launching. Like, you need to get every PlayStation player to just have Dreams installed, go back and revisit it from time to time, so that there's always new blood, new people interested in checking out the creations there. Because as the players dwindle, there's less motivation for creators, and then the creators stop making stuff, and so there's less new stuff to see, so less players come, and it creates just this horrible feedback loop. But I have spent a good amount of time exploring in here, almost 100 hours, 93 hours. I've played through, a couple dozen Dreams games at this point. I always have fun. We do streams sometimes over on my Twitch page, where we will go through and just like explore the Dreamiverse, right? See what's new, see what's popular, dig into the weird stuff that almost nobody has played. Those are really fun streams, always are really good times. By the way, those are linked in the description to the Twitch channel if you want to come hang out during that or any other streams. And yeah, it's just a game that I really love. Some of my favorite games ever have been developed inside of Dreams. And it's a shame to see that it's basically on life support at this point. The team is being slimmed down. Sony's not supporting it. It's shuttered functionally. So, a pour one out for Dreams. We love you, buddy. God, do we wish that you got the credit you deserved. All right, my number 9 game is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, coming in 5 hours above Dreams at 98 hours. This one surprised me because I've, for a long time, been somewhat vocal that I think Sekiro is towards the bottom of FromSoft's output. Part of this is that I recently went back and got the Platinum Trophy. So when I first played this game, I want to say it took me probably 60 hours, 50, 60 hours to get through the first time. It's a hard game. And I threw my head at the wall for some time. And then I went back earlier this year and I did all the 3 other playthroughs necessary to go and actually get the platinum. And those collectively took 30 to 40 hours. I knew what to do. You could rush through a lot of stuff. And so not nearly as much time. And that is what cumulatively brought me to 100. I have a much more positive view of the game after playing those. I think Sekiro is one of the only games that I've ever played that I would say New Game Plus is a better experience than New Game proper, because you understand the game so much better, and the game is designed for someone that understands it, both mechanically and intentionally. So, now these days I do give Sekiro the thumbs up. I still am a little cautious to ever recommend it to people, but between all those playthroughs, I'm not surprised that it's coming in at 100 hours and is my number 9 spot. My number 8 spot, another game that might surprise some people, Apex Legends. So I'm not a huge multiplayer gamer. I'm not a huge, I guess, shooter player. I enjoy the first-person campaigns from time to time, but just kind of persistent online games are not really my bag. My life isn't really super conducive to consistent multiplayer sessions, if that makes sense, because, I have a young kid, and by the time he goes down to bed, I usually just want to unwind for a couple hours in the evening with my wife, and, she and I aren't going to want to, I don't want to put a headset on and be talking to people in a multiplayer game. I'd rather just be playing something single player that she and I can play through together, or you just hang out and talk while I play. But that's why I haven't played any of these types of games recently. However, Apex Legends was a game that I was very, very into when it first came out, which I think was 2019, I want to say. And it's because, this is the same studio that did Titanfall 2, which is my favorite first-person shooter campaign. And at the time, Battle Royale was a new, fresh thing. You gotta go back to... This is in an era when PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds had come out not long ago. Fortnite had not that long before switched to being Fortnite as we know it now, and not a weird sandbox game. So Battle Royales were still somewhat novel. This is kind of in the second wave, I would say, of Battle Royale hype, and probably one of the biggest standouts there. And it helped that the gameplay was really fun. I was at the time playing it with buddies of mine, and we were all really into it. Good loop, good, match duration. I always liked the Battle Royale concept in general. So, yeah, it was a really good time. Now, for those that play Apex Legends, I'll say that I mostly played Bloodhound because I like the tracker abilities. But I did mix it up and play some other characters too. It says that I played it 6 months ago because I went back and cleaned up the last trophy. I had 11 out of 12 trophies, and I cleaned up the last one 6 months ago, towards the beginning of this year. That last trophy I didn't have was you have to deal 5,000 damage to with every character. Or no, 5,000 damage with 8 characters, which at the time was almost everyone that the game launched with. And I was really surprised I didn't have that trophy yet. And so I went and looked because they have the ability to see stats of how close you are. And I had over 5,000 damage with 7 different characters. And with the 8th character, it was 4,800. So I played one match and killed 2 people. And that was enough to push me over the edge. I was so close to the trophy back in the day. I just never gotten over the finish line. I had to play a little lifeline and get that damage over the cap. But if that 6 months ago hadn't happened, the last play of this would have been in 2020. All right, my number 7 most played game, Dragon Quest XI: Echoes of an Elusive Age. Excellent turn-based RPG. I think it's the perfect entry point for people into the Dragon Quest series. If you've never played Dragon Quest before, I also think it's pretty much the perfect entry point to turn-based RPGs. Because what Dragon Quest XI does so well, that is so hard for so many other RPGs to capture, is it has this sweeping, full narrative, stakes increasing, kind of world-spanning adventure, but it chops that up amongst a bunch of little kind of mini narratives, almost like episodes of an anime or something like that, where in a single play session of Dragon Quest XI, you will kind of get a somewhat complete story. You'll show up to a town or, a camp or something. There'll be some inciting event or inciting incident where, something weird is going on. Probably have to go off to a dungeon, beat a boss, learn about what happened, go back and, move on, travel from that location to the next one. And that'll all happen within like an hour or two. So it's the type of game you can play a little bit every day and always feel like you're making forward progress, always get little, bite-sized narratives, and really get a sense of the world and the environment you're in. And then you couple that with the fact that this game has a really excellent cast of characters that all have great personality. They're fun to hang out with. They have good interactions and relationships with one another. It's just a really good time. And the 110 hours there, I would say most of that is just playing through the game naturally. It does take a long time to play this one, but in order to go for the platinum, which you can see that I have, you need to do a little bit of extra grinding. First off is there's kind of like a post-game story in a way. Depending on how you look at it, it's either post-game or it's a third act. But the story continues, and you have to do that extra story and kind of beat the true final boss in that regard. And then also you need to do some grinding to get your characters up to max all their skills and get them up to level 99, which you can do in a couple hours of farming if you know where and how to do the farming. It's not that bad, but that probably added another 3-4 hours on. So it's probably, I would say that's probably about 100 hours all in getting just main story stuff done, and then maybe 10 hours of like clean up side quests and grinding for the platinum specifically. And yeah, please play Dragon Quest XI. It's such a fun game. All right, moving on to number 6, we have Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. This one really surprised me. This is, more than any game on the list, the one that I had no idea I had played this much. I almost suspect that maybe some friends played this on my account. Because I remember, let me take you back, right? I remember the months leading up to this game were, really hype. I loved Metal Gear Solid as a franchise. It was demoing and it was sort of showing really well in events. And then they came out with Ground Zeroes. And Ground Zeroes was like a really good proof of concept. I didn't even actually play Ground Zeroes myself. I watched a friend play it, but I saw how much potential there was in these systems and things, and it got me excited for the game. And then when the game came out, I gobbled it up like a num 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 num, big old bowl of Metal Gear soup, and slurping it down every second I could. I probably played dozens and dozens of hours in the course of a couple weeks. Beat the game. I actually ultimately ended up being maybe a little disappointed in it. It's not a bad game. It plays well. The stealth is good. It's just not what I personally am looking for out of a Metal Gear Solid game. But to see 112 hours in that total, I suspect that there's some funny business going on there. Because I don't think this game takes nearly that long, even to get the Platinum Trophy. And, I may have left it running or something like that, or just been dicking around. Maybe I was just bad at the game. I don't know. Didn't know what to do, where to go, kept dying, something like that. But still, I don't necessarily regret my time I played with it, even though it's a little bit more than I anticipated. I do want to go back and get the Platinum Trophy on this one, just kind of close the loop on it. I don't really know what that would entail. I think there's some online stuff I got to do. I'll have to look into that and see what it would take. I should probably do that before they close the servers, because as you can see, it's been 9 years since I played this game. That was probably when it came out. I don't quite remember at this point. But yeah, gosh, that would be back in 2015 that I played that, so ways back. All right, Cresting into the top half, my number 5, a recent game, Final Fantasy XVI. 115 hours. Now, this one is both true and a little bit inflated, and I'll tell you why. First off, it's true because I was a sucker and I did everything in the game, which if folks have played Final Fantasy XVI, you'll know there is a lot of side quests, a meaty amount of side quests. And not only that, but a lot of them are pretty monotonous. They're, just kind of like, go gather materials, kill this enemy, etc. But I was having fun kind of just being in that world. I loved the music. The combat was simple but effective, even if it was, pretty easy. I did kind of generally like the vibe of it, and some of the quests were quite good. And so I did everything I could across the entire story. But also, that wouldn't have accounted for 115 hours. Part of why this game is so long is this game was the first game that I played after my son was born last year that like a full long game that I was playing through, because in the first couple months after you have a kid, everything is so chaotic, you've got no time for really anything, let alone games. And we were just starting to get into kind of a routine around the time that I was working my way through Final Fantasy 16 in like June or July, whenever that was in 2023. And I would sit out on our couch in our living room, and I had the Backbone. So I was doing remote play to my phone on the Backbone, because there's not a TV in the upstairs living room where we were. And I would play, do 15 minutes or so of Final Fantasy 16, do some of those side quests and things. And then I'd have to go in and, help him, because he was just kind of learning to sleep in the bassinet on his own. And so he'd wake up and he'd need to be rocked back to sleep or shushed back to sleep. And so it was very choppy. I was constantly picking the game up and putting it down. So some of these 115 hours are almost certainly idle time that I wasn't actually playing, but the game was up because I was, taking care of my son. But, that being the time period of my life where I played it also did make me really grateful for those side quests, because it was kind of nice to play low-stakes side quests in an RPG when I knew I would be interrupted. The way I ended up playing 16 is I would do a lot of the side content and sort of like the intermediary missions, and then the big set piece boss battles and big set piece missions, I would do those on evenings where I knew I would have an hour or two set aside. And I would do those on the big TV to see the beautiful graphics. So the rhythm of Final Fantasy 16 worked really nicely in tandem with the rhythm of my life at the time, and that's why there's so many hours played there. All right, number 4, just a few more hours ahead of Final Fantasy 16, we have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And this one just came out. This is earlier this year, and this is more legitimate to the amount of time I put into this game. This is very similar to Final Fantasy 16 in that I did pretty much everything. I did every side quest and every bit of content in every single area of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth up until the very last area and the very last end of some side quests. I finally just had to call it. But yeah, I was really hyped for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth when it came out, and not that dissimilar from Final Fantasy 16. I hear some complaints around the structure and the content, and those I'm actually a little more sympathetic with. I actually agree a little bit more in Rebirth than I do in 16. I do think Rebirth would benefit from just having less stuff. It makes the pacing of the game quite odd when most of your time is spent on kind of trivial stuff and checklists, and then every now and again you get into some of the main story bits. Now, I know that that's a problem of my own making, and I kind of chose to do it that way, but I can't, shake the feeling that is what the experience of playing it was like. So, yeah, almost all those hours were real. I want to say my in-game clock was just a little over 110, so very little idle time. Just me gobbling up a game I was really looking forward to, and yeah, not stopping. Number 3, coming in at 139 hours played, we have Bloodborne. Last played 3 years ago. That's when I went back and got the Platinum Trophy. And 139 hours is for one reason, and that is this game rules. I have played this game probably, I don't know, 5, 6 times. And friends have played this on my account as well. And so that has inflated the numbers a little bit. But Bloodborne is just such a phenomenal time. You know, I go back to when this game first came out. I remember how hyped I was. This is actually the reason I got a PlayStation 4. Fun fact. I didn't have a PlayStation 4 in 2013 when they first came out. It wasn't until 2015 when Bloodborne came out that was the game I couldn't miss. And I got a PS4 specifically to play Bloodborne. So it was one of the first PS4 games I ever played. And then, yeah, I remember sitting in party chat with friends of mine, all of us playing through it together. And like talking about the bosses we were stuck on and the weird things we were seeing. It was just a really fun, interesting time. You know, it's easy to forget after 10 years of people asking for a Bloodborne remake that, you know, Bloodborne was after Dark Souls 2. Like, FromSoft was not a small developer, but they weren't the juggernaut that they are today. They didn't quite have the reputation, so there was still a little bit of like unknown. It's kind of like the most unknown a AAA big budget franchise could be, if that makes any sense. And yeah, I have no regrets putting this much time into the game. I would happily do it again. I'll probably replay it again. I'll replay it when we ever get a 60 FPS version or the kind of inevitable Blue Point remake that we're certainly going to see at some point, right? But in terms of FromSoft games, very deserving. Speaking of FromSoft games, we're going to move up here to my number 2, which is Elden Ring. I think a lot of people who are FromSoft fans would have this towards the top of their most played. And I mean, this is a combination of, you know, absolutely living in this world when the game first came out. I probably put 130 hours into the game at that point. And then, you know, a few months back, the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC came out. That was another 30, 40 hours of game. So that adds on to the save file. You know, take that plus a couple other little miscellaneous, you know, like restarts and things like that. And the hours just add up quick. Of all these games, I would say this is the one where the time just melted away. You know I played a lot of it, but to see it's almost 200 hours of Elden Ring is still surprising to me. It felt like 70 or 80, right? It's just so much fun. You lose track of the space and time you live in when you're playing this game because it's so transportative. And yeah, definitely a game deserving of all its praise. One that I very much enjoyed going back to for the DLC. And even if I would like to see FromSoft move away from the open world model for their next game, I still think that Elden Ring will stand out as an all-timer for a long time. I just don't know what they could do with an open world in a sequel to, you know, escalate above and beyond Elden Ring. I think they would be better to let this be the open world one and go back to making really tailored Bloodborne style single player, kind of more gated exploration type experiences. And my number 1 most played game by a wide margin, dwarfing the 3 games before it combined at 556 hours, is Final Fantasy XIV Online. Yes. Many of you may not know, but I have at many times in my life been an MMO gamer and enjoyed a MMO from time to time. And Final Fantasy XIV was certainly no exception. I played this game right when Heavensward launched. So the Heavensward expansion was basically the time that I put into it. And I was super into everything you are in an MMO. I was grinding up my classes. I was grinding up all my side jobs. I did most stuff. You know, I ran most of the dungeons and did a lot of the kind of high-end endgame content at the time. There's a lot more of that now than there was back then. But I was really, really into it. I played on the PS3, and then when I got a PS4, I played on the PS4. And I still think about going back, you know. I look at that 20 out of 39, and I say to myself, like, I could go get that platinum trophy. You know, I think I could earn that Final Fantasy XIV platinum. Might be fun to revisit this game. So much so that I actually purchased and installed kind of like the complete edition and all the expansions up to the most recent one, except for Dawn Trail. So up through Endwalker, I have them all literally right now installed on my PS5. They're always tempting me. They're always there like, come play us, man. Come, you know, stop doing everything else you're doing and just play Final Fantasy. Could be a lot of fun. So we'll see if I do. It'll be interesting because if I do, it would be the PS5 version, and so I'd have the PS4 and the PS5 stack on my account. And I think you can just log into the two clients, and like trophies, since they're more account based, will pop on both. So I think you're not having to actually redo everything twice, but I'd have to look into how that works in terms of managing the trophies and things like that. But yeah, 14 is absolutely deserving of its like spot as the number one MMO, at least in the hearts and minds of MMO players. I think they did something really special with this game. Makes me wish that I had played 11 back when it came out, but yeah, I will always look fondly on my time in Eorzea, and even if I don't ever go back and play it again, which I probably will, at least have the soundtrack to keep me company. So that is it. That is my 10 most played PlayStation games, at least PS4 and PS5 games. So between them all, gosh, we have to have probably 1,500 hours or so, right? Something like that. So I'd be curious to know, what are your most played PlayStation games? Do you have a lot of multiplayer action up in here? Or do you have, just single player experiences? As you can tell from me, it kind of focuses around a couple multiplayer games I was really into, and then Final Fantasy, RPGs, I guess, Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, and FromSoft games, Bloodborne and Elden Ring. Those seem to be the ones that I dump most time into when I do get really into them. So appreciate you watching. Let me know what your number one game is, and until next time, peace.